Aging gracefully. All the women in my family are beautiful and they aged really, gracefully as well. So I'm not worried about myself.
That was from producer Armand Iqbali. Special thanks to Ashton Applewhite and Alex Copeland. When I tell you Hadley Vlahos is a hospice nurse, what's the first thing that runs through your mind? Something along the lines of, that must be the saddest job in the world. Funny thing, but the woman known as Nurse Hadley online says her work is the most life-giving thing she can imagine. Here's Nurse Hadley finding meaning and beauty at the end.
People can be very uncomfortable whenever I say that I'm a hospice nurse. The most common comment I get is, oh, that's so depressing. I could never do that. I would be so depressed. And the fact is, I'm actually one of the happiest people I know. I love my job. My name's Hadley Vlahos. I'm a registered nurse and a content creator. Hospice nurses care for patients who have 6 months or less to live. It can be longer, it can be less, but these are patients who are deciding to not do any treatment anymore. So they just want to stay at their home and they want to be comfortable. So the big difference between us and a hospital nurse is that we go to patients' homes. Before I became Nurse Hadley, I was a young single mom, and I was really trying to find my place in the world, and I was looking just to everyone else for their beliefs about the world and how we should live in it, and I was pretty lost, to be honest. I didn't know what to believe about the afterlife, about how to live a good life, and I am fortunate enough to have gotten a lot of direction from my hospice patients. Patient named Carl that did not want hospice care at all. At first, he just wanted to be left alone and to watch his football and not be bothered by us coming to his house. I tried to make connections with him, and he started writing down news for me, sports news and regular news, because he learned that I was a single mom and I never knew what was going on. So it started by just telling me about what was going on, and that progressed to writing notes for me because he would forget sometimes what he wanted to tell me. So every time I showed up for a visit, he would have these notes for me that told me what was going on in the world. This was just something that had progressed over time, and then right before he died, he told me, thank you for giving me something to look forward to instead of death. And I had not even realized what I was doing by us exchanging these notes and him having kind of like a little job. And from that moment on, I was like, I never want to ever do any other type of job. Another day, learning how to live from the dying. Well, sometimes I say that, and then I wonder if I should, because aren't all patients dying? Because it's not like we all dying. Technically, everyone's dying. It's not an if, it's a when. I found this community on social media of people who were really interested in death, and it still surprises me to this day that there are all these people interested in it. When I first got started on TikTok, I just said that I was a nurse because I know how people normally react. And eventually people were asking enough, what kind of nurse are you, that I couldn't ignore it. And I remember making this video and saying, I am a hospice nurse. I actually think that I have some really cool stories. Does anyone want to hear them? And I posted it and I remember thinking, I don't think anyone cares and people are going to think I'm weird. And I think that video got 200,000 views of people saying, please tell me, I had a loved one in hospice. My dad was in hospice. Please, I want to hear them. And I just started sharing stories.
A lot of people think my job is death all the time, but it's really not. Today, I got to help my patient feed his goats. Most of the time, I'm just talking to my patients, learning more about them, and figuring out how we can make the last days of their life as comfortable and happy as possible. I would love to know what questions you have about being a hospice nurse.
I started out my storytelling just talking to the camera, and as that progressed, I realized that I was putting people into my shoes of what I'm seeing. And I also realized that at times people didn't really understand what exactly I was talking about because they had never been in a situation where you're in a room with a hospice patient. So from there, I started doing skits where I would show people, this is what it looks like when you're the hospice patient, this is what it looks like whenever you're the caregiver or the nurse.
And Kathleen, you're a hospice nurse. I do not see what the point of view is. Mom, you know she's here so you don't have to go to the hospital anymore. Maybe speak threes. Any ideas on how much longer she has? I think it could be within the next few days. Okay, I just call you when she dies, right? Yeah, just call the office number. Thank you for caring for my baby. Of course. Zach told me how much it meant to him that you quit your job to care for him, and also that you are the world's best pancake maker. You are an amazing mom, and you did such a good job.
I think it has really helped people understand and visualize what it is like whenever you're in those rooms. And occasionally it is very hard for me to make these skits because I remember what it was like to actually be in those rooms. There's one video in particular that really surprised me, which was I talked about estranged loved ones in hospice care. I thought that that was going to be a video that only reached a small percentage of my community, but it was going to mean a lot to them because we don't really talk about that very much in our culture. And I basically said, you are the type of person who continues to need no contact with your dying family member, even after I, as a hospice nurse, call you and say that that is their final dying wish to talk.
The first priority.
Many of the hostages' families met with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu yesterday. Canada's Department of National Defense says Canadian Special Forces are in Israel assisting the Canadian Embassy there. In a statement, the DND says they will support a potential evacuation of Canadians if hostilities escalate further. After a 2-year investigation, BC's police watchdog is recommending charges be laid against 3 RCMP officers. It's in connection with the shooting death of a Wet'suwet'en man on Vancouver Island. Moira Voighton has more.
BC's Independent Investigations Office is asking Crown Counsel to consider charging 3 RCMP officers involved in the shooting death of Jared Lowndes in 2021. The IOO says its investigation found reason to believe officers may have broken the law in their uses of force. The 38-year-old father of 2 was a member of the Wet'suwet'en Nation Small Frog Clan. He was shot and killed in Campbell River after RCMP say they tried to pull him over for an outstanding warrant. The IAO's report into Lowndes' death is not yet public, and neither are the names of the officers involved. His family has expressed outrage at the killing. The BC's prosecution service needs to believe a conviction is likely and in the public interest before it decides to lay criminal charges. Moira White, CBC News, Vancouver.
Contract talks between Unifor and Stellantis are going down to the wire. The union says if there's no agreement by 11:59 p.m. tonight, workers at Stellantis plants will strike. Unifor already secured wage increases from Ford and General Motors, but it wants some additional things from Stellantis. Specifically, they want to know what the company's future plans include, and they want workers at a new battery plant to be able to unionize. Montreal's Felix Auger-Aliassime successfully defended his title at the Swiss Indoors Tournament in Basel. The 23-year-old needed a tiebreak in both sets to defeat his Polish opponent. He says he has worked very hard to stay positive.
I've had the conviction that I can be a top player since I'm a kid, but there was many doubts this year about my performances and why, and I'm happy that I was able to prove to everybody, that I still belong among the best players in the world, that I can play at this level. So I never doubted, but it's good to confirm it on the court.
Now in his last 6 trips to a final, he's won 5 of them. That's the world this hour. I'm Khalil Hassanal.
Time now for a look at the BC weather. Along the north coast, clearing overnight with a low down to 0. For the Peace region, partly cloudy and a low of -5, feeling a little colder. For the central interior, a low of -12. For the southeast, a low down to -10 and clear overnight. For the southern interior, also clear overnight, a low of -4. And along the south coast, clear overnight, a low of -1. Sunshine for Monday, a high of 12 degrees. You're listening to CBC Radio 1.
I would say in the 90s. If you were born in 1999, you're considered older. 92, 91, 90. You're that age, or you kind of old.
You don't have to spend much time on TikTok before you'll notice something a little perverse. People who are 25, 26, 27 years old are routinely being described as old. And this observation is most often directed at women. Journalist Jessica DeFino says framing other people as old when they have just a handful of years on you is a way of keeping your own fear of aging at a distance.
I think social media really lends itself to the project of anti-aging or the goal of anti-aging, because on some level, what is anti-aging if not becoming this static, non-living version of yourself, really? Aging is another word for living.
While some are in a state of frantic denial of aging on social media, denying their own mortality, others are staring it down. Hadley Vlahos is known as Nurse Hadley. She has 1.7 million followers on TikTok, where she's very open about her work and what happens in hospice care.
When I first got started on TikTok, I just said that I was a nurse because I know how people normally react, and eventually people were asking enough, what kind of nurse are you, that I couldn't ignore it. And I posted it and I remember thinking, I don't think anyone cares and people are going to think I'm weird. And I think that video got 200,000 views of people saying, please tell me, I had a loved one in hospice, my dad is in hospice, please, I want to hear them. And I just started sharing stories.
This calling, being a hospice nurse, not only changed Vlahos' life, it made her rethink what she believes about what happens after you die. Later this hour, Stephen Gray, a filmmaker from Winnipeg, also found himself questioning what happens when you die, so he decided to ask the people who say,
ذره ها رقص کنند، آن کس که از او چرخ و هوا رقص کنند. جانها ز خوشی بی سر و پا رقص کنند، در گوش تو گویم که کجا رقص کنند. هر ذره که در هوا در همان است، نیکو نگرش که همچو ما مفتون است. هر ذره اگر خوش است اگر محزون است، سرگشته خورشید خوش Thank